Good morning, everyone. We will begin the morning service of the Miroku Association headquarters, asking God and Meishu-sama for protection and the permission to participate today in the divine plan of constructing a paradise on this earth. Let us pray together the Amatsu-Norito prayer of heaven, followed by the Miroku prayer. Please stand. 高天原にかむすまります。かむろぎかむろみのみこともちて、そめみよやかむいざなぎのみこと、つくしのひむかの立ち花の、おどのあはぎはらに、みそぎ払いたも、時になりませる。腹井戸の狼たち、もろもろのまがごと積み汚れを、払いたまえ、清めたまえとますことのよしよ。天津神、国津神やおよろずの神たちともに、雨の淵駒の耳振り立てて、ひこしめせとかしこみむまおす。弥勒おみかみ、守りたまえ、先生えたまえ。弥勒おみかみ、守りたまえ、先生えたまえ。教えみよや主の神、守りたまえ、先生えたまえ。教えみよや主の神、守りたまえ、先生えたまえ。こんながら、たまちはえませ。こんながら、たまちはえませ。Great God of light, creator and giver of all life, in accordance with your divine will, the long age of night draws to an end. Your radiant divine light, shining ever more brilliantly, awakens the dawn of the glorious age of light, a time long awaited by all humanity. We thank you for guiding us to your divine plan and for the privilege of channeling and receiving Johrei. May our spirits and bodies be illuminated and purified as we live your truth given to us by Meishu-sama. Make us pure and effective instruments of your divine light, so that we may serve you and all those with whom we come in contact. May paradise on earth be realized with health, peace, and prosperity, a reality in our lives. Great God of light, bless and protect us, radiate our souls with your divine light, so that we may truly become instruments of your great plan. Please be seated. We will now receive group Johrei. May God and Meishu-sama bless you. Johrei is now concluded. We will now listen to a reading from Meishu-sama's teachings. Honesty. Honesty is a true treasure, far more priceless than any earthly treasure. I am now spreading the divine teaching of God, so more and more people may be awakened to truth and become truly honest. In order to help others become more virtuous and honest, those who serve must first rid themselves of all insincerity. I have been honest since childhood. I could not tell a lie. When I was young and starting out in business, I was often told, an honest man like you will not be successful. You have to learn how to tell lies if you want to be successful in the business world. I too thought so then. For a short period of time, I tried to do my best to lie. But it was sad. I was so miserable that I couldn't stand it. My life became dark, and my days were all unpleasant. Being a merchant, lying should have been useful for me in business, but somehow it didn't help. Finally, I made up my mind to remain honest to the end. From then on, results were unexpectedly good. The business world trusted me, so I succeeded by leaps and bounds. Later, when I left the world of business to concentrate on my spiritual work, I remained true to my decision to live by the principle of honesty. Naturally, the results have been good. In the beginning, I was misunderstood, criticized, and harassed. Yet, despite all the ups and downs in my life, people's trust in me did not drop. I believe strongly, even now, that this was due to the merit of honesty. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in this morning service. Today, I have the honor to do this service with you. Reverend Marco Negrão is in on missionary trip. He's visiting members in Atlanta, Georgia. Then he's going to Florida to meet with the members in Orlando, in Miami-Dade, in Broward. So we wish Reverend Marco Negrão a great trip and have a great mission. And especially, we wish Reverend Marco Negrão a happy birthday. That's his birthday today. If you didn't know, so you can send him a message. So happy birthday, Reverend Marco Negrão. As he always does every morning, he shared some faith testimonies. So I'd like to share with you a short faith testimony today that he already shared with you. It's from Magali Torres Espinosa. She's a member from Italy, Milan Johrei Center. Magali Torres, she lived in Italy for 27 years. She received her sacred focal point, or Hikari, 3 years ago, and currently she lives in Milan and gives service at the Johrei Center. For almost as long as she can remember, Magali has always had an eating disorder. But 2 years ago, this purification intensified, and she began to have complications with swallowing. She could not ingest anything solid because she was afraid of dying from suffocation, sometimes taking up to 2 hours to be able to eat a single meal. Over time, this situation worsened, and starting in February last year, she began to to process all her food in a blender, diluted with plenty of water in order to be able to swallow it, to eat it. She was afraid, ashamed, and distressed, but at the same time, she wanted to understand what was happening to her. Since she could not understand any rational reason for her predicament, Magali asked her minister for guidance, who advised her to intensify the basic practices of faith, especially the channeling of Johrei, the study and practice of God's teachings as revealed to Meishu-sama, and the regular ritual of prayer. Excuse me. Because the city Magali lived in had no other members there, she channeled Johrei to herself diligently before each meal. Gradually, she began to reflect, trying to understand why she was having to go through this situation. So she continued to practice the guidance received and gradually felt a little better. The following month, because everyone was in confinement due to the pandemic, whenever she was not feeling good, she would call the minister for help. He always stressed that he believed this purification was related to her ancestors, and that should change her thoughts, and that she need to change her thoughts and feelings, asking them, asking her ancestors for forgiveness and expressing to them her feelings of gratitude. As everyone had to stay at home because of the pandemic, she ended up having plenty of time to devote herself to spiritually and to spirituality, and somewhat unexpectedly, memories and reflections about her mother began to emerge. Her mother had had a stroke, and in the last years of her life, she had to be fed through a tube that was inserted into her nose. So, as Magali thought of her, sad memories returned, such as an episode that occurred one day when it was Magali's turn to feed her. Magali had a big plans for the day and needed to go out. So she fed her mother quickly in a careless, inconsiderate way. Although she could not speak, Magali's mother was conscious, and she must have heard what the family was saying. Today, Magali is sure that on those occasions her mother felt very sad and hurt. In Milan, the days went by, and Magali was surprised to realize that she found herself using the same food supplement her mother used to counter the effects of lost nutrition from solid food. And to her shock, she also remembered that in order to feed her mother, she had to grind the food in a blender in the same way that she had been doing for herself. At that moment, Magali realized that she was experiencing the same condition her mother had. However, despite all this, she was still a little skeptical that her mother's own purification could have any influence on her own, since she does not yet have a home altar with Meishu-sama's picture. She would often go to her bedroom to meditate and pray silently during this time. On one occasion, as soon as she finished her prayer, her attention was drawn to a jewelry box where she kept, as a souvenir, a lock of her mother's hair. She thought of her mother, and when she turned, her vision went straight to her mother's photograph hanging in the next room, which just so happened to be perfectly framed by the partially open door, almost as if in a spotlight, drawing her gaze to it. At that very moment, Magali had no more doubts that the spiritual world was communicating with her, and she was deeply moved. And furthermore, she realized that if she had not received the guidance from the minister, she would not have recognized that the messages from the spiritual realm were, were meant for her to change. Immediately, Magali asked her mother for forgiveness. And with a heart full of gratitude, she began to pray for her. After this, Magali gradually began to improve, but not as much as she had hoped. She felt like something was missing, but she didn't know exactly what. Things went on like this for a while until suddenly one day a new set of symptoms developed. Now, in addition to swallowing problems, she also began to suffer from panic attacks, a galloping heartbeat, and shortness of breath. She was constantly anxious, and in times of crisis, she would call the minister who would listen to her and calm her. There were times when she called him several times a day. Later, she came to understood the origin of this new purification. That very week, of her relatives, three of her relatives had died of a heart attack. First her cousin, then her aunt, and finally her uncle. An entire family died in the course of a week, leaving no descendants. She cannot imagine the suffering and despair they felt in their last moments. She remembered that in life they had conflict with her mother, and that before her return to the spiritual realm, this family situation were still pending. Then she understood that both the panic attacks and her difficulty in breathing were related to her ancestors. She spoke about this situation to the minister, who explained to her that although she considered them negative people, she should be grateful to them as they helped to cleanse their spiritual clouds of the family. So he advised her to do Sorei Saishi, enshrinement for her ancestors, so that they could receive light, participate in the divine work, and thus purify and elevate themselves in the spiritual realm. He also explained to her that this was an effective way to help her ancestors and that their happiness would naturally be reflected in her life. After requesting the Sorei Saishi of the spirit of her mother and her relatives, Magali gradually realized the spiritual strength we get by participating in this practice. With each passing day, she found she got better, was more confident, and was able to feel gratitude for all of her ancestors. It has been several months since her last panic attack now, and her swallowing has improved to the point that she can have a practically normal eating life. From time to time, very rarely, the fear of eating returns, but now she manages to control herself. She feels that this miracle is the result of a change in her feeling towards their ancestors, and that thanks to prayers and the accumulation of good deeds, the ancestors received the light of God and Meishu-sama, helping them find peace in the spiritual realm. Currently, she has opened the door of her home so that it could become a Johrei gathering place, and she is following up and assisting 10 frequent visitors. Once a month, they receive a face-to-face visit from the minister to study the teachings of the month and practice Johrei. And once a week, they meet online to study the teachings as revealed to Meishu-sama. Magali is very happy to see that little by little, their group steadily grows. Magali also has had a great desire to one day be able to open a Johrei center in the city where she lives to better serve in the salvation of as many people as possible. Magali is very thankful to God, Meishu-sama, for this opportunity to grow with her ancestors, for giving us the joy of living and permission to serve in the divine work. She also wants to give special thanks to her mother, who from the spiritual realm utilized and guided her to grow in faith, and also to her minister, who throughout this difficult period helped her to overcome this purification. Thank you all very much for listening to this faith testimony today. I wish you all a very blessed day. And with this, we conclude our morning service. Thank you.